Hello, everyone, and welcome to another special episode of Relating to DevSecOps, where we explore the development, security, and operational issues of today so that we can solve real-world problems with people that face them. It's been a while since I've said that, but we're back in January 2024 and excited to start episode 67 with my wonderful and intelligent co-host, Mike McCabe. Mike, welcome back to 2024. How's your new year?
It's going by fast. That's what I'll say. Can't believe it's almost February. I
I
also don't
know.
like the fact that it's February. I don't like the fact that it's 2024. That doesn't sound right. Makes me feel
No.
old.
Yeah. The 1970s, as I've said before, is still 30 years ago to me. So,
Exactly. Yeah, it will always be
yeah,
30 years ago.
forever, forever
Yeah.
and ever. In 2030, 1970 will be 30 years ago.
Yep, for sure. So I'm just feeling older. That's it.
Yeah. Any New Year's resolutions? What are your AppSec New Year's resolutions?
Uh, I had a developer tell me today that they just run a scanner and ignore all the findings. So my resolutions are to help folks like that. That'll be my resolution.
They run the scanner and ignore the findings.
They spend I don't know how much on web inspect, and they're like, "Yep, we know we got some stuff. We're not paying attention to it."
That's not that is so the New Year's resolution is to help them pay attention to findings.
No, to help them actually remediate the risk, to break the cycle of we'll go with the podcast theme, intergenerational trauma of developers who've had to deal with bad web app scanners and just pass Jira tickets into a queue and pay attention to it. So we're gonna break the cycle.
It's overwhelming, when you first turn the tool on. I think we always talk about that, trying to get that queue down.
Yeah. Who
Um,
doesn't like screenshots of a PDF in a Jira ticket? That's how I like prefer to
yeah,
work.
yeah. I mean, my only thing is, I'll try to. I recently for a client turned on a tool like that, and I was trying to, there's a lot of findings in there that not every we just don't have time for. And they may be false positives, they may be true positives, and it's like we're just turning on the visibility. And um, I've had some of the developers, appreciate vocally that we triage the issues first and write them manually in Jira with some context, and so they tend to be a bit more active on that. But I've always been a believer in if you don't have the development team to be able to properly triage the incidents that happens, it's just we don't. I mean, where do you start? I mean, as a security person, everyone knows that you have that moment of just where do I begin?
Yeah.
So I get that. I get that. What else has been on your plate?
Last year was busy. New year, figuring out what this year is going to be like. We'll see what new AI craziness is going to be caused this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that is still a constant theme. I'm seeing more and more of it. I don't want to say that it's settled down, but it has it's changed. I think that it's kind of like the extremes have started to compress a little bit in my experience. Folks are uh less evangelical and less critical, and more of in the middle. I think
Yeah.
minds have opened up in both ways.
And I feel like that's basically what we talked about last year. Not to pat ourselves on the back, but I feel like when we did an AI episode, we basically said it's going to be a useful tool for certain situations. It's not going to be like AGI that takes over everyone's jobs and replaces everyone in 3 months. So we are here are the lottery numbers for 6 months from now because we're just that good at predicting what's going to happen.
Yeah, and also, I've found that adoption of the AI stuff has, I think when everything launched, it was oh, this is gonna change, and everybody's trying it, everyone's using it for everything, and then it started to fall away. People have gotten, I think, a large number of people have gotten over that initial, opening the Christmas present, of just like, oh, I'm going to try all this fun stuff. And then they're like, I'm bored with this. I think that the attention span of
Yeah.
of humans has been realized. And then folks that are interested in it and continuing to explore use cases have continued down that path, but it's
Yeah.
settled down a little bit. I think the hype has not died down, but I think that it's definitely been reduced.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
That didn't make any sense. It's
I knew what you meant.
yeah, it has died down a little bit.
It's a simmering hype.
Yeah, simmering. That's a good one. Simmering hype. Yeah, but I'm still enjoying where it's going, where that space is going.
Yeah, for sure. You were recently at a conference. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I went. I mean, it has been so long since I've been able to go, but I was able to go to Shmoocon in DC. Very fortunate enough to be there. It was really good.
How many times did you press F5 in your keyboard to get a ticket?
Zero. I was lucky
Zero.
enough somebody gave me a guest code. That's the way in,
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
And man, I'm really glad I got to go. It was a really, really good conference. It's been a while since I've been to a conference where you go and you feel like you can sort of hang out with folks in the lobby and still do the LobbyCon type of thing, and you also are able to like go down good talks. I felt like there was a good breakdown. There was a little bit of decision fatigue for me in terms of like which track do I go to and things like that, but it wasn't. When you go to like reInvent and you're just like, where do I go? And if you pick the wrong talk, you have to go to like the other side of Vegas in order to get to the one you go to. So you just end up in this like decision paralysis where you're like, if I make the wrong decision, I'm not gonna be able to go, and you just never go. And I've been there a couple of times, and this was good. I mean, it was 3 tracks. And you could sometimes just sit in the same track. They were easily accessible. The hallway con was good. That people were good. I was very happy with being there. The last time I was at a conference like that was like way back at one of the early Derby cons, where the quality of the talks was good, and the lobby con was good, and people were good. It was nice.
Yeah, yeah. Shmoocon's definitely a unique conference. Definitely. Like an OG conference. I hear it's going to be the last year next year, which is
this
pretty
coming
crazy.
year.
I can't believe it's going away.
Yeah, people are not going down without a fight, though. I think people are trying to like take it over or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's so good.
But I mean, 25 years of Shmoocon, I can understand why they want to retire from running that. It's so much work to run conferences, especially in the DC area. I'm sure it's even harder.
Yeah. So what did they start in like the 70s?
Exactly.
Yeah.
1975.
Yeah. No, it was good. It was open talk. One of the good ones I that was there was Katie Nichols talked about like not panicking about 0 days, and just not poking fun, but just calling attention to how we are so reactive in sort of this security echo chamber where when one person reacts to a 0 day and another person reacts, and no one sort of stops and talks about how to solve it, but people are just in the Twitter storm, X storm of saying this is a huge deal and just like panicking and not looking at like what's the attack path, does this affect me, do I need to react to this? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, this is stuff that we've been talking about. Is just, does it really matter? I mean, the hype really drives it. We used to make fun of like, does the vulnerability have a website, and just talking about those and just providing resources to folks on how to look at analysis of these 0 days and what the effect of them is across the board. So it was nice to see less of that, like that sort of hype train. I exploited this thing. Here's my talk about it, and does it really, does this really matter? And just having that contextual awareness around whether this affects you or not. And at a conference like this, where there's a lot of technical heavy hitters, seeing a conference like that, a talk like that so well received was really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good topic.
yeah, it was good. There were also, I mean, there was obviously the LLM and ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff, prompt injection and jailbreaking things was really interesting there. Um, Talking about fuzzing the LLMs, I went to that talk as well. Um, that was Ian Harris and Marcel Carlson. So they talked about their success in these Dan prompts and being able to break out of this content filtering to get what they want out of that, and the talking about the architecture of using these API driven LLM models, which I also thought was good to see, because it wasn't just like, hey, we're fuzzing this thing and we're breaking out of jail and we're learning how to, we're getting it to tell us how to make bombs and stuff. It was talking about the architecture of your application, and that you are hooking this thing up to the traditional sources you're trying to protect and sort of inherently trusting it. So if you can get one of these jailbreak vulnerabilities and get it to return your data, that's a problem.
Yeah, like the jailbreak or the ChatGPT one where you just type a bunch of times and it dumps training data out. That advanced attack right there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, theirs was a little bit more sophisticated in the talk, but they referenced a few white papers on, using techniques like if John and Jimmy are having a conversation, the last thing that Jimmy says is this, they have these long prompts that are based in how this analysis is happening inside of the model. And I would highly encourage folks to read the paper. I don't think he's published the tool, the Fuzz LLM tool yet. But I think that's going to be helpful for teams to use in terms of, hey, my organization wants to use ChatGPT or Llama or any LLM, and what do we have to worry about in the architecture? I also talked about was it the OWASP LLM top 10 or something?
Mm-hmm.
And they've recently published like the application architecture of these API driven ones, which I think is good from to reference as a threat model.
Yeah, I've looked at the OWASP top 10 one. I thought it was actually. I mean, I'm a fan of OWASP, but I always am kind of tentative with the advice because there's been, some bad top 10s in the past. But I actually thought it was a pretty solid top 10, like pretty well researched, had some unique issues, pretty good breadth for the different areas of AI security. So obviously a top 10 right now when everything is so new is kind of tough to do, but I feel like it was a pretty good start for sure. I'm sure it's going to change a ton over the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, there was when I saw the LLM top 10 on the OWASP project page, and then there is the LLMtop10.com, which is around that as well. And on that site, they have a reference architecture that I really like, because I think it helps to visualize that the application is more than like chatting with the LLM, which I think is how a lot of folks initially think about it. Like, oh, well, if it's not connected to my database or it doesn't have any information, so anything it's going to return is going to be fake. And when we talked about LLMs in our last conversation, one of the things I had mentioned was that somebody on Twitter was like, I got SQL injection. And it was just responding with like generic, it was like, if I had put the SQL injection attack and I was connected to this database, I might return this information. And it wasn't actually returning any valid information. But looking at it in this way, you can see how connected to a database and given the opportunity to extract that information, you could potentially have some information disclosure there.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. Was AI, do you feel like it was a main theme, or is it just there was a decent number of talks?
No, there were just a couple of things in there. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff. There was like how to take x-rays using like it was like Polaroid film or something. It was like beyond me. There were so if you wanted to do like X-rays of circuit boards and stuff, it was how to do it without breaking the bank and getting an X-ray machine. There was all kinds of stuff on RF. There was network level protocol attacks. I really enjoyed, there was a lot on like CI/CD and application building, like how to using, using GraphQL to work on reverse engineering of code, which I think is helpful as well. I think we have the binary ninja stuff where you can do the reverse engineering and use these tools to break apart binaries. But I think that some of the techniques that were there were also helpful for us in thinking about interpreted languages or stuff that we're working on all the time. Of like how where is this function called from? What is my code coverage? How like I don't think that we use that enough in like code reviews, static analysis for web applications. So it was good to think about it in that way. You're like, oh yeah, I've talked about doing that, but it's usually something you see more in reverse engineering and binary analysis. So taking some of that binary analysis practice and trying to think about how we might apply that to web applications was interesting. There's threat modeling stuff in there, It was, I mean, everything. There was stuff with like, I didn't get to see some of these, but like using elk and Elasticsearch, and it was all over the place in terms of like finding a talk. And I think that because of the diversity of the talks, that's why it was interesting, because it wasn't necessarily like if you pick a track, you're doing non-technical stuff or technical stuff. It was like if you are working on a track, you might be talking about preventative measures versus offensive measures versus building things. So really well structured, like really, really cool. Interesting.
So next year is going to be even harder to get into based on this year's reviews.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I mean, when they come out with the videos, I would definitely recommend watching some of those. They're good talks, good quality talks. I didn't go to one talk where I was like, this is crap, where some of the conferences I've been, where I've
heard you say that before. Yes.
Yeah. Usually I'm doing the crap talk, So, yeah. But did you go to any conferences? I feel like you went to one, but you probably running a booth or something.
Yeah, we went to Code Mesh, which was a cool conference because it's actually a developer conference, not a security conference, which is very different. People are friendly; they want to actually talk to you. I mean, it was good. It's fun going to as a security person. It's fun going to dev conferences because it's the other side of the coin. It's not talking about breaking stuff, but people are passionate about building stuff. And sometimes people do kind of look at you like, you're the security guy. What are you trying to do? But there's a lot of people who are open to just having conversations and talking about their issues. Cool. And I definitely recommend security people going to more dev conferences. I mean, I feel like these days, a lot of security conferences, there's a lot of talks about building stuff to break stuff, which is awesome. But there's still a good chunk of security that is still focused on breaking things and not about building stuff all the time. Or, we write terrible Python as a means to an end to do things as part of assessments. But no, it's definitely cool. And it's a pretty big conference, so it's not a tiny, 2-track kind of conference, but it was cool. Good vibes. Sandusky, Ohio, great place in the wintertime. Definitely wasn't, minus 10 degrees with the wind chill or anything like that. So, basically a nice vacation. But no, it's definitely cool. It's fun to go to dev conferences and then security conferences and back to back. But what do you have planned for this year for conferences?
I have no plans right now yet.
Nothing?
No. I need to get on that train though and start to figure out where I'm going and what I'm doing. I was going to ask you though, for Code Smash, is there anything you were surprised about coming out of that, like going into that conference, you kind of, I know that I've been to a couple early in my career, like Ruby conferences, and like you said, people are excited to talk to you, and you get good feedback, and it's kind of a learning curve for some folks. But I'm just wondering if time has, like, have people been thinking about security more? Was there anything in there that, like, you were surprised someone asked you and you're like, man, this is still a thing? Um,
Yeah, I did have one person ask me what is the cloud after I explained how we do AWS assessments. Granted, that person was a high school student, so I'll give them some slack. But no, I mean, I think there was definitely a lack of security talks. I think there was maybe like two or three total, and so people were mostly focused still on building things, and obviously AI was a pretty big topic. It wasn't most of the talks or anything like that, but there's quite a few of those. But yeah, I mean, I think security is kind of like that developer I talked to before. Security is still kind of that pain in the butt that people just want to ignore until they can't anymore. So we're planning on submitting to that conference and a couple other conferences that are similar. That's Code Mash, then there's Tech Bash, there's that conference. There's a few different conferences that are kind of similar, decent size conferences that are definitely worth checking out. This one seemed kind of .NET heavy, but yeah, there was kind of a lack of security, so definitely need to fix that and do more talks for developers and kind of do some more education on that side.
yeah, the what is the cloud thing is super interesting, right? Because you would think that if someone is at a tech conference doing engineering, that they would be exposed to the cloud,
Yeah.
even in high
Well,
school.
they were a more junior person. It took me like a minute to actually explain to them what the cloud was because I was like, damn, that's a philosophical question.
Yeah. Did
Like,
you say it's someone else's computer?
yeah, is it basically it's like someone gives you a server, but it's not a real server. It's like, what's a server? It's like, okay, we gotta take a step back.
Yeah.
There's this thing called the internet. You know YouTube?
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I'm more I haven't been to I have to go. I haven't been to a developer conference in a while. I've been to a lot of cloud conferences. Obviously, I would say that I've been to a fair amount of crypto, like Web3 conferences, which does have a heavy dev presence. But there's also there's a lot of business there too,
Mm-hmm.
and so there is this sort of uh, fusion of business and project leaders and crypto and Web3 that is interesting. But it's been a while since I've been to like a dev conference for enterprise languages or a language specific con or something like that. So I should go maybe to
Yeah.
like a Python conference or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Interesting.
they're good. They're good to break it up from going to security conferences. I went to plenty of those last year, so it's nice to go just to a pure dev conference.
Okay. Um, did you get to go to any talks there?
No, was
No.
was just working.
You just want them to
So
learn from you. You don't want to learn
that's
anything from
exactly
them, huh?
exactly.
Just go
Yeah.
in. Mike knows it all. Just
Went to
super
casino night.
dev.
Went to
Oh,
casino night. Made a bunch of money on fake roulette. So
betting crypto.
yeah, put it all in Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, you would be very sad today if that was the case.
I've not paid attention today.
Yeah. Um, no, we won't derail too far into that world today. That would depress everyone. That was reliant on these latest announcements. But stick in there, those of you. I know what I'm
Diamond
talking
hands.
about. Yeah, diamond hands. Cool. Anything else happening in your world? Any announcements you've got? Anything coming up? I do want to get to our annual question at the end of this podcast. I'm super excited about. But anything before we get into that and go down that rabbit hole? Anything else that is coming up that you want to announce that are folks should be on the lookout for from you?
I'll be speaking at Cloud Connect in Oakland, California, in kind of late February. I think it's the 21st. So if you're
Cool.
out that way, come check it out. That's
What's the topic?
Terraform security, something I've been talking about for a while, but trying to, spread the gospel of Mike of you should do Terraform security.
What additional content to your Terraform security talk are you bringing that would excite your fans? What's the new track?
Just more research, more techniques, and more demos. That's what V2 is going to be for this year.
All right, cool.
Yep.
All right. Our question of the year, right? I think we always talk about this first episode going into the year. I know we're a little bit late, holidays and stuff, but I think that my definition of DevSecOps has remained relatively constant. But we can go down the rabbit hole. Has DevSecOps as a concept changed for you at all between 2023, beginning of 2023, and 2024? And if so, how? And where are you in 2024, and how do you see DevSecOps being a part of our lives in 2024 as a buzzword and as a practice?
Yeah, I mean, so I think my original definition was how you integrate technical security controls into like DevOps operations. So like code scanners or some kind of testing tools. I think that was my definition for last year. I have to go back and listen. And yours was more about like the culture and shifting things left and all those kind of things. And I think I shifted my mindset over the year sort of towards yours. And I feel like that's
I'm
still
very
the same.
convincing.
Yes, it took a whole year, but I got there.
Okay.
But I think it's still that. I think what we've seen in the last year is just an acceleration of how fast things are moving. So take everything, you were already falling behind and feeling like you're underwater in the security space. Now things have been ratcheted up, fivefold with AI development and all the tools and integrations that are coming out. So I think it's a little bit of crunch time for security people to keep up with what's going on. And it really means doubling down on learning more, building more, talking to people about what they're building and learning about what's going on and figuring out ways to secure these integrations. I mean, AI coding alone is going to speed up development. All the AI integrations are going to add new kind of attack surface and new ways to get hacked, like we already kind of talked about. So I think people, if they haven't started dipping their toe into that area, really need to jump in and start learning about what's going on, because it's coming your way no matter what. So that might not be a DevSecOps definition, but it's like take whatever we said last year and turn it up.
Okay, so just enhanced DevSecOps, enhanced V2.
Yeah.
I would say that generally I still think about it the same way, but I've said this a little bit before, that it is a culture, right? It is something that you are working towards a comprehensive understanding of how to foster that security integrated mindset, and to stay away from like moving things left, and more of like how does security become a part of the conversation. And I've thought about how to do this like from a maturity model perspective, and I think that in 2023 my ideas were like, well, if I can start to integrate some of these things into the design process, or start to get security a part of it and treat security as an enabler, and make sure that we are thinking about things in like this holistic way. And I think my view was always, how do I make security make things better, not just more secure? So that was like my mindset. And that worked for me in the past. But I think in all the organizations that I've worked in where that was successful, it was like they had already adopted the fact that they needed some security, so it was still a part of the narrative. And now I'm realizing that there's a very real product-oriented and marketing-oriented story around getting security buy-in, and being able to talk about security and translate it in a way that is enabling to the product and to the product suite is also very powerful. So I think it's like you want to talk about enhancing the definition. I think that's where I'm focused. I've started to have some conversations around what do clients, what do businesses want out of their product from a security perspective? Do they want to be a leader? Do they want to make sure that they are compliant? Do they want to market this in some way as a strong piece of their product? And if so, these are the things that you have to do to meet those goals. So it's like an iteration on that. I've talked about it before of like, rather than targeting compliance to arrive at compliance through good security practices, I think this is more like figuring out what the business wants to portray and then teaching them what they have to do in order to be able to back that up with evidence. Because I think that a lot of times what I've seen in organizations is that as soon as like sales and marketing thinks that they have something or thinks that they are like, that they are secure, it's to them it's over. Like all the stuff that you're supposed to be doing on the tech side like doesn't matter. Like where they trust you to do that thing. So it's really hard to walk that back. And I think trying to get organizations to think about security as a part of the business and of the organization is really, really hard. And I think that it's like harder than I thought. And I think it's kind of my real goal is thinking about how that all fits together, because I think I've been thinking too SDLC-ish and not enough business oriented when it comes to how to integrate security into software. It's like if the business is built around the software, then security integrated into the software is also integrated into the business. And I don't think I've had that lens. So I think that's I don't know if that's a new definition, but it's a new facet of how I think about it.
It's a new integration point, I think. Take a lot of the same ideas, but figure out where you plug it in a different way.
Yeah, because if you can get like who are your, when we talk about security champions, who is your champion? If you're like a director level, or if you're even just a tech lead or something, who is your champion to the executive team? We've talked about like executive sponsors, and we've talked about champions in teams, but I don't think that like it hasn't really hit home for me in any term or buzzword of what is it, who is taking your ideas and going, this is a part of my world now. Security means something to me, and I have influence over the executive team. I think we've been looking at it as like you need somebody at the top that knows about security and has your back. And you're like, well, what does that actually mean? What is their skin in the game to have your back? And I think if you can prove that security is a part of someone who has the ear of the executive team, like that's really important and can help drive security initiatives. And I think that integration of culture, how we've been playing with the term DevSecOps, I think that really fits our definition of it. And it's just sort of expanding that snow globe of security for the business and really thinking about how you can influence up top. And I think, over the last year, I've been challenged to do that with executive teams and had a couple of conversations where you're just sitting there going, like, why don't they see it the way that I see it right now? And if you're having that in your brain, it's like you need to do something to translate that message, or change how you're talking about it to make sure that they kind of see things through your eyes. And I think that's my challenge for 2024. It's my New Year's resolution: more business integration for security, but no checkbox compliance, Mike. We're not doing that.
All right, that sounds good. We'll have to recap this at the end of the year. Listen in December and see how successful we were.
Yeah. Well, I know we're coming up on time. Really light episode this time around, but as we ended 2023, we are going to begin 2024 getting the What is DevSecOps out of the way, we are going to be getting some more guests as we head into each month. It seems like folks really enjoyed listening to that episode. So we'll definitely bring some more voices on and get back to our regularly scheduled programming. As always, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.